It started with a whisper, now it's built into a square.
The BROCK LAWLEY Show.
We're back with the people are back. Wicked and a child who is under attack.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Brock Lawley program. My name is Brock Lawley. Gary is holding down the fort, the radio legend, turning the knobs for me. I appreciate it. Good to be with you. Good to be with you. Entering the Advent. The birth of our Christ. What a celebration. I know we have days for shopping and days for online shopping. And boy, we have filled that space with many, many things. But I do want to encourage you to think about why we are joyous and why we are merry. We are saved, redeemed. So excited to be moving into that time. It's a great time in a lot of ways, but also a lonely time for some people. So be mindful of that. And of course, in this December, the American people are marred down in what else but race conversations. All you get 24 hours a day on your media, in almost every respect. The other day, and I want to talk a little bit about Charles Barkley and how I think he's the epitome of courage and how you should handle some of this stuff. But I watched, they opened up some basketball game with like 15, 20 minutes of race discussion. It has totally saturated the American people, totally saturated the media. I would argue the media has actual blood on their hands with this. I think they've been unbelievably irresponsible. And later in the show, I'm going to get to some amazing stats about nepotism between the media and the Barack Obama's administration. It's almost sickening. It'll bring bile to the back of your throat. I tell you again, the American people, and this is every shade, every class, every gender, the greatest enemy we face, our democracy, our republic, is the American media. It is so abandoned its duty. The fourth estate, the watchdog, is purring like a cat in the lap of one party. That's devastating. And as we enter this new constant conversation about race, I've noticed, as I watch the media, that it's all just whitewashed tombs. It's all just three-card Monty. It's like some cheap crackerjack magic trick. Because what you'll notice is we're not actually having any conversations about real and probably substantive race conversations in our midst. We're not talking about that stuff at all. We're talking about political correctness. We're talking about we're pulling one or two cases of tragedy, certainly, and possibly some of these incidences. Take New York, for example. I think that's certainly an overreach and an overstep in police power. I watched that video many times. But we're not having a conversation about that. No, we're not having a conversation about that. What we're doing is we're drones that are being stirred up, distracting us from real substantive issues. You got American turning against American. All these aberrations and boogeymen, these sort of straw men that are meant to garner our attention. When in reality, there are real problems. There are real substantive problems. Now, forget about the fact that there are real substantive problems in our nation, but there are real actual racial problems. Never are they discussed. In fact, if you take a look at that case out in Ferguson, essentially the modern day temperature, the political correct temperature, the framework that we're all living in now. If you're a person that looks at the stats, allows individual case-by-case circumstances to sway your opinion, if you look at what we actually know, what the grand jury knew, I'm talking about forensic evidence, I'm talking about DNA evidence, I'm talking about the coroner's report, I'm talking about things that used to be determined as facts. Well, if you allow those things to influence your opinion, I was listening to the media, they think you're a racist. That's how far we've moved the goalpost. That now makes you a racist. That you're not immediately supposed to see everything through the lens of color makes you a racist. And wouldn't that be fitting in this new Orwellian world we live in, where up is down, down is right, down is up, right is left, left is right, right is wrong. Everything has been turned on its head, the apple cart turned over in this opposite of the Midas touch administration, where absolutely everything has to be seen through race. And I can tell you one thing, I know for a fact that there is a significant chunk of this country that was hoping for the exact opposite thing to happen as we cast our vote for the first African-American president. But nothing could be further from the truth. I bet if you're honest with yourself, you haven't had as many interactions or as many conversations about race thrown in your face as you have in the last 6 years. I'm telling you, you cannot escape it. If you're one of these people that enjoys sports and enjoys the enjoyment that comes with that. I guarantee you that you have had that thrown in your face educationally. Everywhere you go, it's just race, 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 race. Now, here's the case I'm making. I'm going to make a case for you. This is on purpose. This is on purpose. We're supposed to have these fictitious, heated, poked and prod conversations about race to distract us from real conversations about, hey, if an African American in this country is facing problems, which I can't, I had a Rendell on, and I'm going to have him on again. Rendell Jordan was on with me last weekend to have a open dialogue about this. You notice what we're not talking about? We're not talking about real conversations. The left will talk us about stuff like the minimum wage, and they'll forget about the fact that the black population has 25% unemployment. There's 17% of the population that have 25% unemployment. Their youth unemployment rate in the African-American community is 40%. That's a real conversation, a substantive conversation. I bet you're not hearing that on the media. Blacks have survived slavery. They've survived democratic Jim Crow, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to survive the welfare state perpetrated by leftist policies that create 70 to 80% fatherless rates. Did you know in the 50s and the 60s, 72% of all black men, 81% of all black women were married? The African American employment rate was better than the white employment rate. Home ownership, better. Better, ladies and gentlemen. Statistically better. These are not Brock Lawley's opinions. These are hard facts. You can look this up. Now you jump ahead after President Johnson's war on poverty. Have we seen this? Where they should have called that as war on the black family. What do you see? What do we see? Neighborhoods, devastated neighborhoods, poverty, educational deficiencies, violence, crime, drugs, victimization, entitlement culture. Decades of Democratic policies. If you go to inner cities, if you go to black neighborhoods, it is mayor, city council, dog catcher, Democrat policies lording over them. Are you having these conversations right now? No, you're pulling some rogue cop, or you're pulling some weird police incident, which, as tragic as it may be, and maybe we should have a discussion about that. What has this turned into? This has turned into some big, huge, hold this up as an example, hoist all kinds of social engineering, hoist all kinds of political stuff onto it, hoist all kinds of crap onto it that really has nothing to do with facts or the case, and we're all marred down in it. We're all swallowed up like the quicksand of it. We're not talking about this stuff. We're not talking about 80% of black children born to unwed mothers. We're not talking about real stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can imagine a community with 25% unemployment rate, look at the stats. And I'm not a George W. Bush fan. I'm just not. But look at the African American stats during his administration, and then look at the last 6 years. Look at the statistics. It is remarkable. You want to talk about an African American threat? It is big government, and it is leftism. The Brock Lawley Show on iHeartRadio. You can hear this commentary all week. CourageCulture.net is my website. WMANFM.com, 419-529-1400, Perry ProTech Hotline. We'll be right back.
The Brock Lawley Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. My name is Brock Lawley. This is the Brock Lawley Show. Before the break, I was discussing the race relations and the state of racial discussion, the conversation that we're having as a nation. It's a body politic. I would argue that we're being pulled down. I have a website. I call it CourageCulture.net. I run it with my brother, who's an artist in his own right. And I think this is such a fitting time to sort of take us out of the swamp and talk about things a little bit more elevated. And that is that to deal with these things, we have to be a people of courage. We have to be a courage culture. We have to be able to do what I would argue Charles Barkley just did, which is the man spoke truth. He spoke his opinion, which used to be allowed. And then, boy, he was slaughtered in the media. I could not stop reading negative things about him. And what he say? He fought back. He stood up for himself. I'm going to bring my brother on air with me. Luke, what do you think, man? What do you think of the state of that we're in here? 6 years in, it's race, pounded like an Ohio State halftime drum. What are you thinking?
It's misdirection. First off, hi. I've been listening. It's a good show so far. I think it's just misdirection. I think that the Hallmark holiday movie maybe wasn't doing its trick this time around, so they needed to come up with something different to get your eyes and ears off of what's really going on. I've never been a really big conspiracy theory person, but this thing with the really hard pounding of the drum of race division, I definitely believe. Obviously, this has kind of been a ball that started rolling several years back with this administration, a very powerful tool to kind of divide and conquer the nation. But I think that this most recent kind of wave that we're seeing is definitely a misdirection tactic and a tactic used to just divide the country.
I totally agree. And think about it. If you're a person who refuses, and this is something that you and I had stumbled upon on the BROCK LAWLEY Show on iHeartRadio, that we have a segment, Luke and I, that we talk to one another. The fact, if you refuse, in 2014, if you refuse to see people by way of race, if you refuse to let race be the dictate when you look at a person, if you're still a thinker of Martin Luther King's original dream, character over skin color, if you just refuse to allow yourself to see the world like that, you are the new racist. It's remarkable. Think about it. They'll tell you it's your white privilege, or they'll tell you that I've heard people on television talking about the fact that if you're not constantly seeing race, constantly saturating your mind with racial thinking, you are the new racist. Can you imagine something more Orwellian?
Well, you take away their power when you really disarm them. When you say, "Look, I expect everyone to behave a certain way. It's the standard I hold myself to in my own life." Obviously, we fall short of that, but this is not an issue of the amount of melanin in your skin. This is an issue of character. And so, yeah, you're right. We've talked about that. If you think that way, and if you look at everything going on through a character lens, then you disarm them, and you make them unable to control you, and that's why the racist label, which most people fear, gets slapped on you.
Exactly. And think about how many other areas of life they do this in, and this is your thought. You think about, they do this with conservative Christians. They do this with everybody who wants to actually everything that can help you in society, like actual candid conversations about race, will help. So we're not allowed to have them. We have to have them in this very political correct frameworking, which doesn't allow us to speak clearly.
It's very unauthentic, and you actually remove the ability to have any real change in mentality when you put up all these constraints and you're walking on eggshells. And I know political correctness is like the new verbiage, it's the new way you have to be, but you really can't be honest with a person. Maybe the way you're thinking is wrong, but unless you're willing to be honest about it and have an honest conversation, none of that stuff's ever going to get fixed or come to light. And all this stuff in Ferguson, all this stuff in New York City that's going on, there maybe some things need to be discussed and some things need to be changed, but with all the nonsense that's surrounding this, you're never really going to get to the heart of any of these matters. I mean,
exactly. We're not having those conversations.
I thought it really funny that the hands up don't shoot things become the mantra, and we've talked about this specifically, how if you're going to tie your horse to a wagon, you better be sure the wagon is the true one. And so they select an issue in the country that just fell apart. It was held together by duct tape, and it just fell apart. And I think that's just so silly to have a movement based on a lie. I mean, if you really feel like there's a bias and prejudice in this country, at least pick an incident which is true.
And exactly, and the interesting thing is, what's amazing about the time we live in is, as the facts of the case rolled in, they were powerless against the Potemkin Village constructed whitewashed tombs that the media was throwing at us, and they would not deter the story. You'll notice the forensic report came in, would prove there was DNA on the rifle. You'll notice all these different things came in, and what I noticed is the discussion never changed. It continued to march as if it was on some predetermined train track, which is what all racial discussion has been for the last, I don't know, even longer than this administration. So the point is you're having your mouth is moving and words are coming out, but no real conversation is happening, so no ground is being gained. And you and I both believe this is a distraction tactic to turn our attention away from real problems, substantive issues that affect all of us. Doesn't matter what color skin you have. And it's sad to see, but we are really victims of this media structure. This one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Luke, is because we have such a passion for creating courage within people. Because the only way you fight this stuff, political correctness is a powerful force. It can ruin you professionally. It can ruin your reputation. They will come after you, but you have to be a people of courage. This nation was built on that. You have to use your God-given abilities, and you have to throw it into the fray. What are your thoughts in parting?
Well, in everything you said, I concur. I mean, you even run the risk of losing friendships. It gets down to a much smaller level. These groups of people have been conditioned to think a certain way. So if you approach a subject like this and say, listen, you know me. I mean, a lot of times being a conservative or a Christian or somebody who doesn't really see skin color or ethnic background,